Hi, this is Carrie Clark with Zoom Through Latin here, and I wanted to do a quick video to talk to parents about some things they can do with their essential students in preparation for Latin. I get this question a lot, and so I thought I would just go ahead and show you instead of trying to answer everybody's questions on that. Um, when your student is in essentials, they are parsing tons of sentences and they're using the term subject, possessive, indirect object, direct object. And what I have found that my son had just come off the memory work year where they learned nominative, subject, genitive, possessive, dative, indirect object. And I found that right off of that, he was familiar with those terms and he was able to connect them. So when we're doing his essential sentences, what I started having him do is when he would mark an S for subject on a sentence, I would go ahead and have him put a slash and mark N as well for nominative so that he was familiar, he knew those terms and he was using them. And I have found that by doing that, this will help our students transfer into Challenge A Latin so much more easily. And I'll go ahead and show you an example here. I have on my board a sentence and I have at the top left, this is the way they memorized the memory work, nominative subject. I personally wish they had flipped it and they had learned it this way, subject, nominative, only because when a kid looks at a sentence, their first word that comes to their head that they've been doing for 3 years in essentials is the word subject. So automatically, they're going to put a subject S above the subject of the sentence. And it takes a while for their brains to translate and start to think about that the subject also, nominative is just another word for subject. Those are the case names in Latin. And so I had my son then go ahead and put a slash and say subject, nominative. And we talked about it, and I would just have him use the nominative case until he was doing it more comfortably. And then we moved on and we started using the direct object or accusative case. And so we would look at the sentence, Jesus gives what? He gives life. And so he would have marked this direct object, and then he would have put accusative. And he is a third year essential student just finishing up now. And at this point now, he doesn't even use the S or the DO. He puts N for nominative and AC for accusative. And then me would be our dative. And so that would be our indirect object. And he would put a DT for dative. And like I said, now he's so comfortable with the Latin terms that he doesn't even use the word subject, indirect object, or direct object. He's using nominative, dative, and accusative. And at first, when he started to do that, I would see the N or the DT or the AC, and I think, does he really know what those mean? And so I'd say, why do you have an N? Mom, because that's nominative, subject, he'd say to me. So in his head now, those words are completely interchangeable. And I believe that when he gets to Latin next year, it's going to make Challenge A Latin so much easier. What I found when I was tutoring students and when I myself was first learning Latin, I spent a lot of time parsing and going, okay, Jesus, that's the subject. And I would have to look at my resource quickly and say, okay, what is the subject? What's the Latin word for subject? And I would have to look at it and put not and then say nominative. So I did not automatically look at a word, think subject and nominative interchangeably. It took me a while to get that memorized and to know that. And I see the Challenge A students having that same translation issue. And so to me, if they can automatically use the Latin cases, they memorized them in foundations, but if it's not fresh, they're not going to remember them in Challenge A when they get there unless that memorization is maintained. So if they can memorize those or feel interchangeable with those two terms, it will help them so much as they start to do their Latin, so that when Henley is using the terms nominative or the term dative or accusative, they don't even think about what does accusative mean. They know automatically that's talking about the direct object of the sentence. And this was a huge jump for my son. And so I would recommend starting to do that. I would not have them use all terms right at the same time. I would start first by reminding them, remember when we memorized this in foundations? Go back to the chant, subject, nominative, or nominative, subject, genitive, possessive, dative, indirect object, accusative, direct object, ablative object of the preposition. Go back to that chant and then say, you know what? when we mark a sentence with the S for subject, let's put an N for nominative at the same time and do that until they automatically are doing that without your reminder. They remember nominative means subject. And then once you know that they feel comfortable with nominative, then add the direct object in, because that's the next most used part of a sentence. And once they feel comfortable with direct object and accusative and the nominative, then you can add another part of speech. I think this will prepare your students for Challenge A Latin more than anything else that you can do. I have a lot of people ask me, well, what about the possessive, or what about the ablative for object of the proposition? I don't know if I would use, I haven't used the genitive with him as much. That's something that we'll have to transfer maybe a little bit later. He has used it a few times because he knows the terms. And then object of the preposition, obviously we do a lot of prepositional phrases in Essentials. So we have lots of object of the preposition. So they could put those as ablative for right now. Once they get into Challenge A, they're going to find out that sometimes the object of the preposition actually takes the accusative cases as well. Some are ablative and some are accusative. It's about 50-50. So I think it's okay to have them use the word ablative for now. But just know that when you get into Challenge A, there is going to be another case used. The accusative case will also be used for some objects of the preposition. And that's something they can learn once they get there. I don't think it will mislead them by using ablative now. So that's just one thing you can do to prepare your essential student for Challenge A. The other thing that I would do is start having them work on the Henley Latin vocabulary. There is a website called memrise.com, MEMRISE.com, and that has a great spot for practicing vocab. My son has loved it. He started doing it last summer, so the summer before his third year of Essentials. I probably wouldn't do it any sooner than that, and it's also a great thing just to do after the third year of Essentials for that summer and to have them start learning the vocabulary. I am going to put some information on how once you get on the site, it's not super user-friendly to get set up and to make sure that you have the Henley One vocabulary. There are some steps that you need to take to do it. Once you're in and you have the vocabulary set up, it's great and it's very user-friendly. There is an app, so you can do it as an app on a tablet or an iPad or an iPhone. I prefer to use it on the computer and go to the website, just because there are times when they ask the kids to type in the meaning of the word, and I'm not a fast texter, so I prefer to type. Some kids might be able to text it more quickly, and they can do that. And so these are just a couple things that I think helping your student prepare for Challenge A Latin. These steps will make that transition an easier process. So if you have any other questions, feel free to message me at, you can message me. I don't know, my Facebook page is Zoom Through Latin, and you can message me under this video, or you can send me a message to Carrie Clark. It's Kerri, Clark, CLARK. Hope you guys have a great day and hope this tip helps.